Welcome back to Haunted Horror Stories. Tonight's episode is built for anyone who's ever driven too far past the last open gas station and told themselves it was fine. In today's episode, I'm sharing 7 true disturbing stories from a midnight road trip. Tales of people who ventured into that dead stretch between towns and found something they were never meant to see. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Story 1. The thing about driving at midnight is how the world narrows down to whatever your headlights decide matters. Everything else becomes suggestion, trees like walls, fields like black water, road signs flashing by too fast to read. I'd been staring at that same pale ribbon of highway for so long I started seeing shapes in it, like the cracks were trying to spell something out. My car smelled like stale fries and that vanilla air freshener I always buy because it makes me feel like I'm taking care of my life when I'm not. I was coming back from my sister's place. She lives 2 counties over, nothing dramatic. I'd helped her move a couch up 3 flights of stairs, and I was in that weird, floaty mood you get when you're exhausted, but still wired from conversation. I had a half-cold coffee in the cup holder that tasted like burnt plastic because I'd microwaved it earlier, and my phone was on 10%, which I kept meaning to fix with a charger that, of course, was at home. There's a back way that shaves off about 20 minutes if you're willing to trade time for, I don't know, for emptiness. It cuts through this stretch of pine and scrub where the radio gets fuzzy and you pass maybe 1 car every 10 minutes, if that. I'd taken it before, but only during the day. At night it felt like I'd turned off the world behind me and hadn't gotten permission. About 15 minutes in, I started noticing the deer. Not the deer itself, there weren't any on the shoulder, thank God, but the way the little reflective eyes on the roadside markers kept catching my lights and making me think something was standing there. It's silly, but it puts you on edge. I kept squinting, leaning forward over the wheel like that would help. My shoulders were tight, and I had that annoying itch between my shoulder blades like my shirt tag was digging in. Then I saw a person. I'm not saying I knew it was a person right away. At first it was just a vertical shape at the edge of my beam, right where the tree line pulled back from the road. You know how sometimes a mailbox looks like someone standing still? It could have been that. But as I got closer, it didn't resolve into a mailbox. It was too tall and too narrow, and it was facing the road like it was waiting. No reflective vest, no phone light, no movement, just standing. I slowed down automatically, more out of confusion than caution, and I remember thinking it's probably a hitchhiker. People do that out here sometimes, like it's still 1978. Then the shape moved just a little, and my mouth went dry in that instant way like I'd swallowed cotton. It leaned forward like it was trying to see inside my car, and the way it moved wasn't right. It didn't shift weight like a person. It was more like a hinge. Like the top half of it folded down without the lower half doing anything. I told myself it was perspective. Headlights do weird things. Exhaustion does weird things. I'd been up since 6, my brain was mush, whatever. Still, I eased toward the center line as I passed, not swerving, just giving it room. And right as I drew even with it, it stepped into the road. Not a full step, just one leg, if it was a leg, slid out into the lane. I didn't see it lift. I saw it extend like something telescoping. My foot slammed the brake and the seatbelt bit into my collarbone. My tires chirped and my coffee jumped up and splashed my hand. It was warm enough to sting. The figure didn't flinch, didn't hurry, it just adjusted like it had planned on me stopping, and now it was correcting for the distance. I was stopped dead in the road with my headlights blasting it, and for a second I couldn't make myself do anything. My hands were locked on the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I remember noticing the dashboard clock said 12:17 and thinking stupidly, I'm going to be late to work tomorrow. Then the figure raised its head. That's when I saw there weren't any eyes, not shadows where eyes should be nothing, just smooth, pale surface like skin stretched over a skull, with faint seams where features ought to have been, like someone had pressed a face into wet clay and then wiped it away. And its mouth, this is the part I have trouble explaining without sounding like I'm trying to impress you. Its mouth wasn't a line. It was a long vertical split that went up too high, almost to where the nose should have been. It wasn't open at first. It looked zipped shut, then it unzipped, not like lips parting, like the skin itself separated down the middle, peeling back with a sound I could somehow hear even through the glass. A soft, wet rip, and inside there weren't teeth. There were ridges, like the inside of a throat, but arranged in rings, moving. I made a noise. I don't even know what it was. Something in my throat tried to become a scream and got stuck halfway. The figure leaned toward my driver's side window and I saw its arms. They were too long. They hung down past where its knees would have been if its legs made sense. The fingers brushed the road surface like it was tasting the asphalt. I told myself absurdly that maybe it was a costume, some idiot trying to scare drivers, except there was no fabric, no seams, no mask shine. It looked like it had grown that way. And then it spoke. It said my name, not in a creepy movie whisper. Not in a booming demon voice. In my mother's exact tone, the one she uses when she's trying to sound calm, but she's actually furious, like I'd tracked mud into the house. Evan, it said, open the door. My heart did something painful against my ribs. My mom was alive. She was at home, asleep, probably with the TV on low because she can't stand silence. There was no reason her voice should be out here, coming from that. I shook my head like that would shake the sound loose. I whispered no and immediately felt stupid saying it out loud. The thing cocked its head. The movement was too smooth, like it was mounted on a bearing. Then it reached out and placed its hand on my hood. The hood dipped. Not a lot, but enough to make my headlights tilt down and my beams slide off its face. That shift, losing full light on it, broke whatever spell my brain was under. I jammed the car into reverse. The engine revved and the tires spun a little on the grit, and for a second I thought I'd stalled it because my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't feel the gear shift. But the car lurched backward, and as soon as it did, the figure moved. It didn't run. It didn't chase like an animal. It glided forward fast, covering distance without that up and down bounce a body should have. My rearview mirror filled with it. I saw the split mouth opening wider, peeling farther up, and those inner ridges flexing like they were breathing. I reversed until I felt the back tires drop off the pavement onto the soft shoulder. The car tilted and I almost panicked, thinking I'd ditch myself. My steering wheel jerked, and I swung back onto the road, then slammed it into drive. The engine hesitated. It did that awful thing cars do where there's a beat of nothing, like it's thinking about it, like it's bargaining. The figure was already at my driver's door. Its fingers tapped the glass, one by one, in a slow pattern. The nails weren't nails. They were flattened like spoon ends. When they touched, they left faint wet smears that steamed in the cold air. Evan, my mother's voice said again, closer now, right by my ear even though the window was up. Baby, open the door, it's cold. My foot smashed the accelerator and the car finally caught, lunging forward. The figure's hand slid along my window as I pulled away, and for a second I felt pressure. Not outside pressure, like something pushing. Inside, like my eardrums were being pressed inward by a change in air. I drove like a person who should not have been driving, too fast, hands white on the wheel. I kept checking the mirror, expecting it to be back there, keeping pace somehow. The road curved and dipped, and every set of reflectors looked like eyes. My throat hurt from breathing wrong. After maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, I don't know, I hit a stretch where the trees broke, and there was a wide, dark field on the right. The moon was out, and it should have made me feel better, like I'd escaped the tunnel of forest. But in the moonlight, I saw something alongside me, not in the road, in the field matching my speed. At first I thought it was a deer running parallel, which already would have been weird at that speed, but it was upright. It moved with long, smooth strides, not bouncing, and I could see it only because the moon caught the pale surface of its head. It wasn't looking forward. It was turned toward me, watching. I remember laughing once, sharp and ugly, because it was the only thing my body could do besides scream. Then I did the only smart thing I'd done all night. I didn't look at it again. I kept my eyes on the road. I drove until the trees thinned, and I saw the orange glow of a town ahead like a promise. When I finally pulled into a gas station, one of those bright ones that never feels truly safe, but feels safer than darkness, I parked crooked across 2 spots and just sat there. My legs were shaking so hard my knee kept bumping the steering column. I got out to breathe, and the air smelled like diesel and wet concrete. There were a couple of teenagers near the ice machine laughing. A trucker was pumping gas, normal life. I wanted to grab someone by the shoulders and beg them to tell me I looked insane, that nothing happened, that I'd fallen asleep at the wheel for a second. Instead, I walked around to the front of my car and stopped. On the hood, right where it had placed its hand, there was a print, not a handprint like a person's. 5 long, spoon-shaped marks, each one slightly curved, like the imprint of something that had too much surface area, too much moisture. The paint underneath was dull, like it had been lightly sanded. And in the center of those marks, this part made my stomach roll. There was a faint pattern in the grime, like concentric rings, like the ridges inside its mouth. I wiped at it with my sleeve and it didn't come off. It wasn't dirt. It was changed. I drove the rest of the way home with every light in the car on and the radio blasting nonsense talk radio. I slept with my bedroom door locked, which I haven't done since I was a teenager. Sometimes, when my phone drops to 10%, I feel that same itch between my shoulder blades, and I have to force myself not to check my rearview mirror twice. I don't take that road anymore. It saves 20 minutes, sure. But I've started leaving earlier for everything, like I'm paying back a debt I don't remember agreeing to. Story 2. The desert at night isn't quiet the way people think. It's not this peaceful, empty silence. It's more like the sound is there, but it's pushed far away, like someone turned the volume down on the world. You hear your own car more, the rattle in the door panel you ignore during the day, the thin whistle of air through the window seal, your own swallowing. I was driving from Flagstaff toward this little rental outside Kingman, cheap weekend thing. My friend Lena had buylaid last minute because her kid got sick, so it turned into a solo trip, which I pretended was fine because I'd already packed. I had a cooler with exactly 2 sodas and a bag of grapes that had gone a little soft. My GPS was being dramatic as always, warning me about limited visibility, like I couldn't tell. I took a state route because it looked straightforward, and also because I'm the kind of person who sees scenic and thinks it means safe. The road was 2 lanes, no median, nothing but scrub and rock. Every so often there'd be a pulled-off dirt track leading into nowhere. I remember thinking how easy it would be to just disappear out there, not in a crime way, just in a no one would find your car for weeks way. About 40 minutes in, my GPS lost its mind. It didn't just reroute, it started spinning, like the map couldn't decide which direction was north. The little arrow that was supposed to be me rotated in place like it was dizzy. Then it snapped back and told me to take a left. There was no left, just desert. I tapped the screen like that helps. I told myself it was the signal. Phones do that out there, whatever. Then the road dipped into a shallow wash and my headlights caught something in the lane ahead, something low and pale, like a tangle of plastic bags. I slowed down because hitting debris out there can ruin your night fast. As I got closer, the bags resolved into strips. Skin strips. That's what my brain called them, instantly, without asking permission. Long pale ribbons laid across the asphalt as if something had been peeled and draped there. They were too thick to be paper, too matte to be plastic. My stomach lurched. Then I realized they were moving, not flapping in wind, sliding, like they were being pulled slowly, inch by inch, off the road and into the ditch. I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. Curiosity is a disease, I swear. My hazards clicked on and threw orange light into the darkness, and I just sat there staring, trying to come up with a normal explanation. A tarp, a weird snake. The way my brain scrambled for not supernatural was almost funny. Then something rose up in the ditch. Not a body at first, a shape. It came up like a person crouching, but too smoothly without that awkward shift of knees and hips. It lifted into my headlights, and I saw it had a head sort of, and that its skin wasn't skin. It was road-colored, like asphalt, but pliable, stretched over a frame. It shimmered with embedded grit. And where its chest should have been, it had a rectangle of reflective material, like a road sign stitched into it, catching my hazards and flashing bright. For a second, the reflection strung my eyes. Then the rectangle showed letters, not painted letters, letters formed by cracks. It spelled in neat dark lines, pull over. I blinked hard because my eyes were watering from the reflection. I told myself it was coincidence. My brain will see patterns anywhere. That's a thing, pareidolia, I've read about it. I used to be the kid who watched documentaries to feel smart, but the letters shifted. The cracks rearranged themselves like something scratching under pavement. Now it said, window. The thing took a step toward my car, and I realized the skin strips on the road were attached to it, trailing behind like long tongues, dragging and gathering dust. Each time it moved, the strips shivered, and the sound they made was this dry, dragging whisper that set my teeth on edge. I fumbled for my door lock even though I knew it was already locked. I hit it anyway twice, click, click. The thing stopped at the edge of my headlights and tilted its head. The head wasn't round, it was flattened like someone had pressed it down, and as it tilted, the reflective rectangle on its chest caught my headlights again and the crack letters changed. Roll down. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so on the nose, like the universe had decided to bully me with signage. I shook my head, mouthing no, and I started to turn the wheel to do a three-point turn, which was a stupid plan because the shoulder was soft and I knew I might sink. But staying there felt worse. Before I could move, something hit my trunk. A solid thump like a hand slap. My whole car rocked slightly. I froze, and then I saw in my rearview mirror another reflective rectangle. Behind me, low to the ground, and it flickered letters in the darkness, catching my hazards. Stay. I didn't see the second one fully, just the reflective patch and the hint of a shape crouched behind my car like it was hugging the bumper. Two of them. I felt this hot rush behind my eyes like I was about to cry, and I hated it. I'm not a crier. I'm the make-a-plan person, but my body didn't care what personality I thought I had. The one in front stepped closer, and as it came fully into my headlights, I saw the iconic, awful detail that still makes my stomach flip when I picture it. Its hands weren't hands. They were chunks of broken lane marker, those reflective road studs embedded into the ends of its arms like knuckles, and when it flexed, they clicked against each other, making the same rhythm as a turn signal. Click, click, click. It reached toward my driver's window and the crack letters on its chest shifted again. Open, I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires spun and threw gravel. The car lurched forward, and for a second I thought I'd hit the thing because it was right there, but it moved aside in a way that wasn't dodging so much as flowing, like it could pour itself around the front of my car if it wanted. In the mirror, the rear one rose up, and I caught a flash of its reflective patch, and the crack letters flared bright. No, then my car fishtailed. The shoulder grabbed my right tires and yanked. The steering wheel jerked hard enough to hurt my wrists. I fought it, heart hammering, and the car corrected, wobbling back into the lane. Dust exploded behind me like smoke. I didn't slow down. I didn't check if I was still on the right route. I just drove fast enough that my engine sounded strained until I saw another car's headlights in the distance and almost sobbed with relief. When I finally reached a lit intersection, a real one with reflective signs that didn't move, I pulled over onto the shoulder and put my car in park. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't open my water bottle. I sat there until my breathing calmed down enough that I could think like a person again. And then I heard it, click, 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 not from my turn signal. My hazards were off. The sound was outside, faint, coming from the rear of my car. I got out. I don't know why I got out. Maybe because I needed proof I wasn't losing it. Maybe because I'm stubborn in the worst possible way. My taillight, my left taillight, had a line of small reflective studs pressed into it, not cracked through it. Pressed in, like someone had softened the plastic and embedded them. They formed a neat arrow pointing toward the driver's door, and underneath the arrow, etched into the dust on my bumper with something sharp, was one word. Window. I got back in my car so fast I almost slammed my own fingers in the door. I drove straight to my rental and kept every light on in the house until sunrise. I don't use scenic routes anymore. And anytime I see a sign that says, "Pull over," my skin prickles, like the road itself is remembering me. A story 3. There's this particular kind of tired you get on road trips where you start making little deals with yourself. Like, if I make it to the next town, I'll stop. Or if I see one more gas station, I'll get coffee. You keep moving the goalpost because stopping feels like admitting you misjudged your own limits. I was on a midnight drive through southern Missouri, heading toward my cousin's wedding. I'd left after work because I'm a genius who thinks I can do everything in one day. My suit was hanging in the back, covered in a plastic garment bag that kept whispering every time the air shifted. I had beef jerky stuck in my teeth and no floss. I kept trying to scrape it with my tongue like a dog. The road was damp from an earlier rain, and the yellow lines looked extra bright, like they'd been repainted. Every so often I'd pass a patch of fog sitting low in the hollows. It wasn't thick enough to be scary, just annoying, like driving through someone's breath. I took an exit because my GPS suggested it shortcut, it said. The exit ramp spiraled down into a wooded area and dumped me onto a narrower road with no streetlights. The trees pressed close and the air felt colder, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in 1 mile. I told myself it was elevation, or the wetness, or my imagination. A few minutes later, I saw a house, not a farmhouse back from the road. Right up near the shoulder, half hidden by trees, like it had been built too close and then the forest tried to swallow it. No porch light, no windows lit, just a dark shape with a roofline, and in front of it a payphone, like an actual standalone payphone booth, the kind you see in old movies. It was tilted slightly, like it was sinking into the ground, and the glass was fogged from the inside. I slowed down because I couldn't help it. A payphone out there felt like finding a dinosaur bone. My first thought it was some kind of art installation. People do weird stuff in the woods. My second thought was it was a landmark. Maybe this was one of those roads where locals put odd things to help themselves navigate. Then the payphone rang, a clean metallic ring that cut through the damp air. I felt my scalp prickle. I told myself it was a prank, someone wired it, or it was one of those novelty phones that plays sounds when you pass. But it rang again, insistent, like it wasn't performing, like it wanted an answer. I kept driving. I didn't stop. I'm not that guy in a horror movie. I didn't even glance back. The ringing followed me, not physically, obviously, but in that way your brain keeps replaying a sound because it doesn't have a place to file it. My hand stayed tight on the wheel, then my phone lit up. No service still, but it lit up with an incoming call. The caller ID didn't show a number. It just said, home. I stared at it too long and my car drifted. My tires bumped the rumble strip and jolted me back. I felt that adrenaline spike, hot and immediate. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped. And then a minute later it rang again. Home, I told myself it was a glitch, some cached contact, some weird GPS interference. But my phone wasn't doing anything else. No notifications, no bars, just that call. The third time it rang, I answered. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity again, that disease. Hello. I said, trying to sound normal, like I wasn't answering a ghost call in the middle of nowhere. There was breathing, slow, close, like someone had their mouth right against the microphone. Then a voice said, "You missed the turn." It sounded like me, not a vague resemblance. My exact voice, with my exact little throat rasp I hate hearing on recordings. Same cadence, same habit of clipping the end of words. I felt sick. I actually tasted something bitter, like pennies. I started, and then I stopped because I didn't know what I was arguing with. The voice, my voice, laughed softly. "You always do that," it said. "You always think you know where you're going." I hung up, just stabbed the red button like I could kill it that way. My hands were shaking hard enough the steering wheel vibrated. I told myself it was some kind of prank app. Maybe someone spoofed my number. But how? No service, no bars, nothing. Then my GPS spoke, not the normal polite voice, not in 2 miles, turn right. It said very quietly, "Don't go home." I looked at the GPS screen. The map wasn't showing a road anymore. It was showing a straight line into the woods, like my car was off-road, cutting through trees. The little arrow that was supposed to be me was pointed backwards. And then my car's interior light turned on by itself. The dome light, that soft yellow glow that instantly makes you feel exposed at night, like your car is an aquarium. I hadn't touched it. The switch was in the off position. I flicked it anyway, on off, like maybe it was stuck. It stayed on. In the rearview mirror I saw the back seat, and I saw a person sitting there, not a shadow, not a headrest trick. A person-shaped presence occupying space, hunched slightly like they were trying to make themselves smaller. The garment bag over my suit shifted as if someone had brushed it. My brain tried to rationalize so hard it almost short-circuited. "You picked someone up." I hadn't. They got in at a stop. There were no stops. "You're hallucinating." Maybe. I was tired. I was stressed, but hallucinations don't move the garment bag. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I kept my eyes on the road, but my peripheral vision kept catching movement in the mirror. A slow tilt of a head, a shoulder rising. Then very gently something tapped the back of my seat. One tap, then another. Then a slow scratch, like a fingernail dragging along upholstery. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. The iconic thing, the part that still visits me when I'm trying to fall asleep, happened as I passed under a low branch that dipped over the road. My headlights flickered for a split second as shadows crossed them. In that flicker, the thing in my back seat leaned forward and its face came into the mirror's view. It had my face, not perfectly, like someone had tried to sculpt me from memory but got the proportions wrong. The eyes were too far apart, the mouth sat too low, and the skin looked damp, like it had been kept in a plastic bag. It smiled with my smile, but the teeth were not mine, too many, crowded like a zipper. It whispered in my voice, "Pull over, I'm carsick." I made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. My vision blurred. I gripped the wheel and kept going because I didn't have any other plan. The tapping behind me sped up. The scratching got more impatient. I felt pressure near my ear, like someone leaning close, and the air in my car smelled suddenly like wet pennies and old carpet. I did the only thing I could think of. I aimed for light. I saw a glow ahead, dim at first, then clearer. A cluster of lights. A roadside church maybe, or a house. As I got closer, it resolved into a small, isolated convenience store with one gas pump and a flickering neon sign that said open, even though it looked like it hated the idea. I pulled into the lot fast enough to spray gravel. I didn't even park right. I threw the car in park, killed the engine, and got out. The cold air hit me like a slap. The silence outside made my ears ring. I yanked open the back door. No one was there. The seat was empty. The garment bag hung still. My suit swayed slightly like it had been disturbed, but there was nothing occupying the space. I stood there under that buzzing lot light, trying not to hyperventilate, trying to convince myself I'd imagined everything. Then I saw my phone. It was on the back seat, even though I'd had it in my hand. The screen was lit with a missed call, caller ID home, and the voicemail icon showed not one message, not two, 7. I didn't listen to them. I still haven't. I'm scared of what I'll hear, and I'm scared of how much it'll sound like me. The physical evidence came later, after I got home and unpacked for the wedding. When I pulled my suit out of the garment bag, there was a handprint on the inside of the plastic. From the inside, 5 long finger marks pressed outward, fogged into the plastic like breath on glass. I didn't tell my cousin. I didn't tell anyone at the wedding. I smiled in photos and ate dry chicken and pretended I wasn't thinking about the back seat the whole time. But now I drive with my dome light taped off, and when my phone says home, I let it ring until it stops. A story 4. Some roads make you feel like you're trespassing even if there's no sign that says it. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like your tires cross an invisible line and your body goes nope. This was in northern Maine, late fall, the kind of cold that turns your breath into a thin scarf. I was driving with my friend Sahana after a weekend cabin trip that was supposed to be resetting. You know, hot cocoa, board games, pretending we weren't both quietly falling apart in our 20s. We left later than we meant to because we couldn't get the wood stove to stop smoking up the place, and then we lost one of the cabin keys and spent 20 minutes digging through couch cushions like it mattered. Sahana kept humming this little tune under her breath, off key, and it was driving me nuts in a way I didn't want to admit because she'd been stressed lately. The road out was a single lane with turnout spots, all surrounded by dense trees. The branches arched overhead and made the sky feel far away. Every now and then we'd pass a mailbox with no house in sight. That always creeps me out. Mailboxes without houses feel like leftovers. At some point, Sahana said, "Do you smell that?" I didn't at first, then it hit me, this sour, damp smell like mushrooms and copper. I told myself it was just swampy ground, Maine's full of wet places, but it got stronger and the heater started blowing air that smelled wrong, like it had sucked something dead into the vents. Then we hit a patch of fog, not normal fog. It was low and thick and it didn't drift. It sat, like it was pulled there on purpose. Our headlights made it glow white, and beyond it the road disappeared. Sahana turned down the radio. "I hate this," she said, and her voice sounded smaller than she meant it to. As we entered the fog, the world went muffled. The trees became gray smudges. The road lines vanished. I slowed down to 20, then 15. And then right in the center of the lane, there was a stroller. An old-fashioned baby stroller, like something your grandmother would have pushed. Metal frame, big spoked wheels, fabric hood pulled up. It sat perfectly upright, not tipped, not abandoned in a hurry, just placed. We stopped. Sahana whispered, "No." I told myself immediately that someone's car broke down and they left it, or it blew off a truck, but it didn't look like it had rolled. There were no skid marks, no drag marks. It looked set. I cracked my window an inch because my brain wanted more information and cold air knifed in. The smell got worse. That mushroom copper smell. Something inside the stroller moved. Not a baby shifting. Something heavier pressing up against the fabric hood from underneath like a hand. The hood bulged slowly, as if whatever was in there was stretching it from the inside. Sahana grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "Drive," she hissed. My foot moved toward the gas. Then the stroller's wheels rotated, just a quarter turn, like it was trying to face us. And from inside, through the fabric, I heard a voice that was too close and too soft. Hey, can you help me?" It was a child's voice, a little boy maybe 6. It sounded wet, like it was speaking with its mouth full. My body reacted before my mind did. Every hair on my arms lifted. My stomach dropped, because the voice didn't come from the stroller like sound comes from a thing. It came from everywhere in the fog, all around the car, like the fog itself was talking. I whispered, "Nope," like saying it out loud could create a boundary. Sahana started crying, silent tears just sliding down her cheeks. "Please don't," she kept saying, not to me, like she was talking to the road. I hit the gas. The car jerked forward, and as we approached the stroller, the fabric hood peeled back on its own slowly, like an eyelid opening. What was inside wasn't a child. It was a bundle of sticks arranged like bones, tied with hair. Real hair, dark and long, woven through the frame. And in the middle of it, where a face would have been, was a deer jaw wired into place, teeth bared in a grin. And the boy voice came out of that jaw like it belonged there. "Help me," it said again. We swerved. The stroller scraped along the side of the car with a metallic shriek, like it had tried to latch on. Sahana screamed then loud, and it snapped me fully into survival mode. We drove. We didn't stop until we hit the main highway. The aftermath proof happened in daylight, when we finally got home and I thought I could breathe again. I went to wash the car because the side was smeared with mud and something darker. On the passenger door, right below the window, there were tiny teeth marks, not scratches, not dents. A neat half-moon of punctures, like something had bitten the metal and tested it. I sold that car 6 months later. I told everyone it was for maintenance reasons. But really, I couldn't stop seeing that stroller in fog whenever I drove at night, like the road was capable of putting it back any time it wanted. The story 5. I used to think of long bridges as boring, just something you cross. Water on either side, maybe a nice view in daylight. That changed on a midnight drive across coastal Louisiana when the storms were rolling in and my windshield wipers couldn't keep up. I was heading to my aunt's place after a family argument that I'd probably exaggerated in my head, one of those I need space moments. I packed in a hurry, forgot deodorant, brought the wrong shoes. My trunk was a mess of plastic grocery bags because I'm incapable of owning a real duffel. The bridge was this long, low stretch over marshland with water that looked black and thick. The rain came down in sheets, and my headlights made it sparkle like static. I kept my speed steady, hands tight. Halfway across, I saw someone walking on the shoulder, which is already weird. There's nowhere to walk to out there. No sidewalks, no houses, just marsh and water. They were holding an umbrella, bright red, which stood out like a wound in the rain. I slowed down because I thought maybe they needed help. But as I got closer, I realized the umbrella wasn't covering them. It was held above their head, sure, but the rain wasn't touching it, not hitting it, not sliding off. The raindrops around it curved like they were avoiding it. My brain tried to rationalize wind, maybe a weird updraft, maybe my headlights making illusions. But the curve was too clean, like the rain knew not to enter that space. As I passed, the person turned their head. Their face was covered in something like a veil, thin fabric soaked and clinging, and under it there was movement, not facial movement, like something crawling under cloth. I kept driving, heart pounding. I told myself I was tired, seeing things in rain, whatever. Then my windshield wipers stopped, just froze mid-swipe, stuck upright like arms surrendering. The rain instantly overwhelmed the glass. I couldn't see the road. I cursed, slapped the wiper control, tried every setting. Nothing. And through the watery blur, I saw the red umbrella again. In front of me now. In the lane, impossible. There was no way it could have gotten ahead of me that fast, not walking. I hit the brakes, and my tires skidded on the wet bridge surface. My car slid toward the guardrail. The umbrella didn't move. Then the person beneath it raised a hand and tapped the air in front of them, like knocking on an invisible door. My windshield cleared, not from the wipers. The rain simply stopped touching it. A clean, dry oval appeared, as if something had placed a barrier between my car and the storm. And through that clear oval, I saw the person's veil lift. There wasn't a face. There was a nest, like a wasp nest, pale paper layers forming a skull shape. And from its openings, small wet things wriggled, tasting the air. The nest mouth opened, and a voice came out, not words. A buzzing, vibrating sound that I felt more than heard deep in my teeth. My car's engine died. The dashboard went dark except for one warning light that flickered weakly. I fumbled the key, turned it, nothing. Again, nothing. My breath fogged the inside of the glass. The umbrella moved closer, and the space under it stayed dry despite the storm. It was like a pocket of wrongness traveling toward me. I did something desperate. I threw the car into neutral and let it roll backward, using gravity and tiny steering corrections. It felt like trying to back away from a predator without turning your back. The umbrella stopped. And then slowly it tilted, as if looking down into my car. Something small hit my hood, then another, little wet thunks. I looked up and saw the bridge surface above me. Well, not above me, but the air around was suddenly full of those small wriggling things. They were falling from nowhere, dropping into the storm, splattering on the road and crawling. I slammed the door locks. Like that matters against things that fall from the air. My engine finally turned over on the fourth try. I didn't question it. I hit the gas and drove the rest of the bridge with my hazard lights on, not caring if I hydroplaned, just needing to reach land. The aftermath proof showed up the next morning when I opened my hood to check the engine, pretending I was a competent adult. There were dozens of tiny circular dents in the metal, each one with a faint papery residue stuck in the center. Like something had tried to build a nest on my car briefly, and then decided I wasn't worth finishing. A story 6. I've always been the drive-through-the-night person. I don't like hotels, I don't like stopping. I'd rather be tired at my destination than vulnerable in some roadside place with thin curtains. That's what I told myself anyway. This was in the Rockies, somewhere between small Colorado towns with names you only see on signs. I was driving back from a hiking trip, that ran longer than planned because I got stubborn about reaching one more overlook. My legs were sore. My hair smelled like sweat and pine. My passenger seat was littered with trail mix, receipts, and a paperback I'd read maybe 10 pages of. The road climbed and twisted, and every so often there'd be a pullout with a view that was just darkness at night. The sky was full of stars, sharp and cold. Then I saw headlights behind me. I wasn't surprised. There are always other night drivers, but these stayed at the same distance for a long time, not getting closer, not falling back, just present. I checked my mirror a few times, annoyed. Eventually, I slowed slightly to let them pass. They didn't. Instead, the headlights dimmed, like the car behind me had turned off its lights but kept driving. I told myself maybe they turned into a pullout. Maybe they slowed for a curve. But when I checked again, the lights were still there, faint, like candle flames. Then my radio, which had been playing static country music, shifted into a voice, not a station. A voice speaking right over the music, calm and intimate. "You're doing great, keep going." It sounded like my dad. My dad is dead, not in a dramatic way, heart attack years ago. I don't talk about it much because people get weird, like grief is contagious. I gripped the wheel and said out loud, "Nope," because apparently that's my coping mechanism. The voice continued, gentle, "Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop." I told myself it was an old recording, some radio interference. My brain grabbing onto familiar tones because I was tired, but the words were too relevant, too timed. The road curved, and suddenly the headlights behind me were gone. Not turned, not faded, just gone. And in the next curve, I saw a car ahead of me parked partially in my lane, hazard lights on. I slowed, heart pounding, ready to swerve. I could see a person standing beside it, waving both arms like they needed help. I started to brake. Then my radio, my dad's voice, became urgent. "Don't stop." The person by the car waved harder. I could see their silhouette in my headlights. They stepped into the lane, forcing me to slow. I told myself, stranded driver, emergency, I can call for help. I can at least ask if they're okay, but something in their wave was wrong. The arms moved too evenly, like metronome arms. No panic, no variation, just perfect repetition. And when they stepped fully into my headlights, I saw they weren't facing me. They were facing away toward their own car. They were waving to someone behind me. I looked in my mirror. There was no one behind me. The iconic moment hit like a punch. The person's head rotated backward without their body turning smoothly until their face looked at me over their shoulder. Their face was folded, like skin pleated into layers stacked. There were too many eyelids, opening and closing in sequence, like a camera shutter trying different settings. My body decided for me. I swerved around them, narrowly missing the parked car, and kept driving. As I passed, the person's hand slapped my rear quarter panel hard enough to rock me. I felt it through the frame. The radio went silent. No music, no static, just dead air. I drove until dawn without stopping, my eyes burning, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. The aftermath proof was simple and awful. When I finally reached a town and got out to stretch, I found a handprint on my rear quarter panel, skin, oil, and grime in the shape of fingers. But the fingers were double-jointed in the wrong direction, each one bent sharply backward, like the hand had been made to grip from the inside out. A story 7. There's a stretch of road in West Texas where the land is so flat you can watch a storm coming for an hour and still not know if it'll hit you. It makes you feel small in a way that's hard to describe without sounding poetic, which I'm not trying to do. It's just you and the sky doesn't care. I was driving with my roommate Joe Quinn back from visiting his parents. We'd left late because his mom kept trying to send us home with leftovers in mismatched containers, and we had to play that polite tug-of-war where you insist you don't need more food and she insists you do. The car smelled like cilantro and warm tortillas, and there was a sticky spot on my steering wheel from a soda spill earlier. Joaquin was half asleep, hoodie pulled over his head, one earbud in. I had the windows cracked because the heater was making me drowsy. We were on a long straightaway when we saw headlights coming the other direction. Normal, except they weren't moving. They were just there far ahead, fixed in place like someone had parked facing us on the road. I slowed. Joaquin lifted his head and squinted. "What is that?" he mumbled. As we got closer, the headlights flickered once, like blinking, and then they were behind us. Not passing, not turning, behind us. We both twisted to look back, and sure enough, there were headlights in the rear window, same distance, same brightness, matching our speed. I told myself it was just another car that had turned around. Maybe they'd missed something. Maybe they were tailgating, but the road was empty. No turnoffs, no intersections, just flat land and fence lines. The headlights behind us flickered again, and for a split second I saw what was between them. Not a car grille, not a hood. A face. Huge, pale, pressed close, like the headlights were its eyes, and the space between them was a stretched, flat nose and a mouth that was too wide. Then the headlights blinked, and the face was gone, replaced by normal darkness between lights. Joaquin sat up fully. "Pull over," he said immediately. "Let them pass." I didn't want to stop, but I also didn't want this thing behind us. So I signaled like manners matter and eased onto the shoulder. The headlights behind us stopped too, maintaining the same distance. Like they didn't need brakes, like they were anchored to us. I put the car in park. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. The headlights behind us dimmed, and then we heard footsteps in the gravel. Slow, heavy, approaching from behind. Joaquin whispered, "Don't look." Of course I looked. I couldn't help it. In the rearview mirror, I saw something walking toward us, emerging from the darkness between those lights. It was tall, but not in a tall man way. Tall in a stretched way, like someone had grabbed it and pulled upward. Its arms hung too low, elbows wrong, hands swinging near its knees. It moved with a hitch, like it was learning how weight works. The iconic detail that broke me was its feet. It had no feet. Just flat, broad pads that slapped the gravel without toes, leaving damp, dark imprints like wet leather pressed into dust. It reached the back of my car and leaned down, and I heard, distinctly, fingernails tapping the trunk. Then a voice came from right outside my driver's window, not from behind, from beside me. "Hey," it said softly, friendly. "You got a light." I whipped my head toward the window, and there was nothing there. Just darkness and my own reflection. Joaquin was breathing fast. "It's not one thing," he whispered. It's two." The tapping on the trunk stopped. The footsteps started again, now circling. Then the passenger door handle lifted. Once, twice. Locked. I hit the lock button anyway, again and again, like a prayer. The handle lifted again, slower this time, testing. And then my interior lights turned on, all of them. Dome, footwell, everything flooding the car with light. In the reflection of the passenger window, I saw a shape standing right outside the glass. But when I looked directly, there was nothing. Only in reflection. Only as a negative space, a distortion in the air shaped like a person. Its head tilted, and the distortion rippled like heat haze. I didn't think. I just started the car. My engine turned over immediately, like it wanted out too. I slammed it into drive and peeled off the shoulder, gravel popping under tires. In the rearview mirror, the headlights behind us stayed, matching speed perfectly. Joaquin grabbed my phone and opened the camera, pointing it backward. "If it's there," he said, voice shaking, "it'll show." The screen showed the road behind us. No headlights, no car, nothing. But in the bottom corner of the screen, reflected faintly, was a pale shape pressed against our back window from the inside. Like someone crouched in our trunk and was trying to crawl forward through glass. We both screamed then, actually screamed, and I drove faster than I should have until we hit the first cluster of buildings, the first real light. The headlights behind us vanished the instant we passed under a street lamp. We pulled into a fast food place, shaking, and sat there until we could breathe. The aftermath proof didn't show up until the next day when we unpacked the leftovers from his mom. One container had popped open in the trunk, cilantro and onions everywhere, and on the inside of the trunk lid, in the dust and spilled salsa, were 4 long streaks, like finger trails dragged downward, as if something had been hanging there and slid itself free. I still don't know how to live with the camera part. The fact that it was there in reflection, but not on the phone screen, makes my brain itch. Like reality has blind spots, and midnight roads know how to use them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments which story unsettled you most, and share this with your friends who love a good scare. Until next time, stay safe.